Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Welcome to Merryn Talks Your Money, the personal finance edition of Merryn Talks Money. In these bonus podcasts, we talk about the best strategies for making the most of your money. I'm Merryn Somerset Webb, and with me today, senior reporter and money distilled author John Stepek. Hi, John.
Hi, Merryn.
We've been getting quite a lot of good questions recently, haven't we? Who knew? Who knew our listeners were so engaged and so interesting? Lifetime ISAs, that was an interesting one last week, and we got another very good one on junior ISAs this week. Now, before we get started on this, I'm just going to say we are going to have a Merryn Talks Money later in this series, probably in December. We're talking about clever ways to set money aside for your kids, but this week, in fact, we're going to do that just in time for Christmas because, you know, grandparents will be sending their £20 notes. You'll want something to do with them. This week, it's all about junior ISAs. We've had a question in from Adam.
Hi, John. Hi, Merryn. This is Adam here. My question is, I'm about to become a dad, and I was hoping that you guys could talk about the various JISA options and specifically whether there are any good stocks and shares products on the market.
Now, John, you and I, we've talked about this before because we both always felt a little guilty that we didn't actually open JISAs for our children early doors, did we? Although we were lucky to a degree because we were both had our children at the time when you got child trust funds.
Yes.
So Gordon Brown bunged us both a little bit of money, which we left languishing in random accounts for 18 years. And that was kind of that.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, my admin phobia really got me on that one, particularly for child number 2, who unfortunately saw most of it eroded in shocking fees after I lost track of where it was. But let's just move swiftly on from that colossal error.
John, you're actually an embarrassment. You're an embarrassment to the podcast. I thought you were going to say that you'd got a grab at some point and blah, blah, blah. I did. My kids actually did end up with junior ISAs, just so you know.
Yeah. Like I said, I feel like a massive failure for that one, which I am. So,
yeah. Well, you are, and we'll talk to your children about that later. Maybe we should get the kids on. Anyway, so a junior ISA is a very simple vehicle. It is a tax wrapper into which you can put £9,000 a year for each child. So over an 18-year period, that's going to add up. Between birth and the age of 16, you both control you control the money and they can't have it. Between 16 and 18, they can control it. They can move it around the place, but they can't have it. Age 18, you have to hand it over to them and they can do whatever they want with it. You can put the money into cash or you can put it into stocks and shares, just like an adult ISA. You can, I don't know, what else can you do with it, John? What have I missed?
I mean, honestly, that's it. In terms of what you can do with it, it's just an ISA, but with different rules in terms of withdrawals and age limits and all the rest of it.
Yeah. And what you really want is to build up cash in that, not cash, but assets inside that, and then have your child age 18, look at it and go, oh, thank you so much, mummy and daddy, you are amazing, and move it into an adult ISA, keep it there for ages, keep adding into it, and then use it for a house deposit or something like that. If anyone has experienced that ideal situation, do let us know because we don't come across it very often. Mostly people either don't save into it properly, leave it in cash so it sort of languishes around the place and doesn't make any proper returns, or they hand it over to their kids who go to Ibiza and spend a lot on booze.
I mean, that's a good point about cash flow. I think if you are going to put money in a junior ISA, then 9 times out of 10 it should be in stocks and shares because they're not going to be accessing it for a long period of time. So it is daft to keep it in cash.
It's also a bit pointless because apart from anything else, you have an allowance. You have an allowance for interest, and you have your general tax allowance. So you're going to have to earn an awful lot of interest before it's worth having it stuck inside an ISA rather than just in a general deposit account, right?
No, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, there's almost no reason to have it in cash ever. And actually, if they were actually, this is going off topic, but if they were looking for a decent nudge, then they would actually say, if you're going to open a JISA, you have to put it in stocks and shares. You have to invest it, and it can't be in cash. Anyway,
John Nanny State Stepek.
I like to nanny in the right direction for once, put it that way.
Right, listen, before we move on to talking about a stocks and shares ISA, which is your own JISA, which is your only JISA you should probably have for your kid, let's talk about whether you should have a JISA or open a JISA for your child at all. Now, one thing that we always say here is that your children will really thank you if you put your own financial security ahead of theirs. I'll put it the other way around. One thing they're really going to hate you for is if just when they're hitting their own middle age and they've got children and education, mortgages and all the stuff to worry about, it turns out that you haven't taken care of your own retirement and they have to help you out. Nobody wants that. So the absolute key thing here is do not start looking up children for your children. And looking up children for your children? Don't look up any children. Never look up children. I have a cold. I don't feel very well. I'm going to start that bit again. Before you lock up any money for your children, look after your own financial security. Put on your own oxygen mask first. This is the key. So, if you haven't done that, I still think that it's worth opening a wrapper so that grandparents, godparents, etc. can contribute into that wrapper. But I don't think you should be putting your own money into that wrapper until you have filled up your own ISA, your own SIP, etc. Is that fair, John, or am I just being mean on the kids?
No, you're 100% right. I sort of think that a JISA is a good vehicle for grandparents and other people who, are willing and able to kind of give your kids money for the future. And the whole thing about they get it at 18, well, okay, that's a risk you take. But no, I think that, if you aren't filling up, 20 grand or 40 grand between the two of you in your own ISA each year, which is not many people can do that, then there isn't really any point on, hiding this money, which cannot be withdrawn for until your kids are 18. You're absolutely right. Sort yourself out first.
Sort yourself out first. Right. So here I am. Sorted myself out. I'm rich as creatures. ISA full every year. Pension all sorted. My mortgage is paid off. It's on the way to being paid off. It's all brilliant. I'm going to open a JISA for my kids. We've already discussed how you shouldn't bother with a cash ISA. Really not worth it. So we're going to have a stocks and shares ISA. How am I going to do that?
I mean, that's a good question, but I think, a reader's sort of saying, what good ones are there out there? And obviously that's, we can't sit here and say, well, this fund or that fund. But the way, I don't know about you, Merryn, but the way I would think about it is this is a investment that has a very long time horizon on it. So whatever is the maximum amount of risk that you are willing to take, you should be thinking about it in those terms. So, all equities rather than sitting there worrying about whether to stick some of it in bonds or whatever. And then beyond that, it really depends on what your appetite is for how much effort you want to go to. You can just go for the straightforward passive stuff and kind of match the global index as much as you and that's as far as you want to take it. And if you're going to be more active, then what we always say is just kind of go for the stuff that's undervalued, because over time, buying cheap is better than buying expensive.
John, I do just want to go back one bit, just from the phrasing of the question. I want to be absolutely certain that everybody listening understands that there is not really any such thing as a good stocks and shares ISA, if you see what I mean. And that I don't want people to think that a stocks and shares ISA or a JISA is a thing in itself. It's not a thing. It's a wrapper. That's all it is. So whoever you go to as your provider, what you're buying from them is you're buying a wrapper, the equivalent of a box into which you will put investment products. So what you're doing is choosing a box, and then you're choosing products to put inside the box. Now, if you go particular providers like, I don't know, Nutmeg or Wealthify or something like that, they will choose the product to put in the box for you. If you go to, say, Vanguard, you buy a very cheap box, but you can only put Vanguard stuff in the box. You go to somewhere like Interactive Investor or AJ Bell or Hargreaves Lansdown, the three big names in this market. You go to them, you buy a box. It's maybe not quite as cheap as the boxes you buy somewhere else, but you get a much wider variety of stuff to put inside it. So that's the absolute key thing. You are not buying a thing. You are buying a box, a wrapper. I just want to be clear on that, because I'm not sure that everybody always understands that. They say, I've got a Barclays ISA, and you're like, well, that's not really a thing. It's just a wrapper.
No, you're right. Actually, that's a really key point. And then, what you put into it is up to you.
Yeah, but then I would also say the only thing you will know in advance about the performance of the products you put inside the wrapper will be how much they cost. And costs really compound over an 18-year period. It's going to make a very big difference to how much money your kid has at the end, whether you chose something that a total cost a year of 25 basis points or a 0.25% or 1% or 1.5%. There's going to be a huge bit of difference there. And you will know that in advance, whereas in advance you cannot know whether the FTSE is going to outperform the S&P 500 or whether you should be in China or whether you should be in Japan or whatever. We have our views, but there's no guarantees here. What is a guarantee is that your costs will compound. That's it.
Yeah, so keep it cheap, whatever you do.
Keep it cheap, keep it simple, and don't forget that it could easily end up in a bar in Ibiza. Thanks for listening to this week's Merryn Talks Money. If you like our show, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to follow me and John on X or Twitter. I'm at MerrynSW and John is John_Stepek. This episode was produced by Sam Asadi, production, support, and sound designed by Moses Andam. Questions and comments on this show and all our shows are always welcome. Our show email is merrynmoney@bloomberg.net.